Hi, everybody. Good morning. We're moving on. So we're going to finish off chapter 19 today. Maybe we'll start chapter 20 a little bit. And we're talking about the difference between the four-letter name of God, Yud Ke Vav Ke, and the name Elohim, the difference between the two. And we made a general statement that Elohim seems to be associated with physical creation, with differentiation, multiplicity, and Yud Ke Vav Ke is more representative of unity, of the essential unity of Hashem. And that is why Moshe, when he commands the Jewish people to do war against Midian, he says, Nikmat Hashem, the vengeance of Hashem, Yud Ke Vav Ke, because Midian is multiplicity, is divisiveness. And so therefore, in order to counteract divisiveness, we invoke the name Yud Ke Vav Ke, Nikmat Hashem. But the author is now explaining not so fast Kowalski, and that is, it's not 100% true. This kind of generalization that Elohim is associated with multiplicity and Yud Ke Vav Ke is associated with unity. It's not that simple. And we're now trying to explain that even Yud Ke Vav Ke is associated with multiplicity. You see, you might say, if looking at this superficially, for instance, when the Torah describes creation, Bereshit bara Elohim, in the beginning, Elohim created. That the name Elohim associated with physical creation, where you have this kind of facade of multiplicity and division, but not the name Yud Ke Vav Ke. Yud Ke Vav Ke, you might have thought, which is not true. You might have thought that Yud Ke Vav Ke is more the essence of Hashem, but that's not quite true. Even Yud Ke Vav Ke is relating to creation, but in a different way. So that's what we're going to explore further. So Yud Ke Vav Ke is actually also related to multiplicity. It's just a different aspect. And now, if we're in the Hebrew, we're on the second line at the top, and in the English on page in the chapter 19, and where it says, you should have the text there. This name is composed of four letters. Just towards the bottom, beginning of chapter 19. This name is composed of four letters. Okay, so Be'emet Halo B'Shem Havaya. In the name Havaya, this name Yud Ke Vav Ke, the four-letter name of God, Yesh Bo Daled Otiyot. There are four letters. Now he's going to show you how the name Yud Ke Vav Ke doesn't represent utter transcendence of God, the aspect of God which is totally beyond any kind of creation or differentiation or multiplicity. Is not true. And he's going to show you. Now, the four-letter name of God has how many letters? I know that's a hard one. 4. Okay, that's like there is. Yeah, what's.
Who's in Grant's Town?
Yes. Thank you. How did you see this? I'm in Sacramento too long now. It's like people are now, they know exactly my mind. Like, that was very good. Did she do this to you too? It's scary now. I gotta stop thinking. I gotta read my thoughts. So, right, that's like that question. Who's buried in Grant's Tomb? Uviyadua asher hadalat otiyot hema madrigot pratiot mechulakot zemizeh. It's known to Kabbalists, like the Kabbalists in this room, that the four letters of God's name, in fact, they represent these four different letters because they represent different individual expressions of creation. Ubederach klal. So he's going to show you, we'll discuss this in a kind of a general way. Hadalet otiyot havaya, the four letters of God's name. Kolim hadalet olamot abiyah. We know, according to Kabbalah, that the world exists in four different dimensions, sequential dimensions of existence, right? The world kind of flowed into being. There's first the world of Atzilut, then the world of Bria, then the world of Yitzirah, and then the world of Asiyah. Those four worlds. That's abbreviated Abiyah. Okay? Atzilut, Bria, Yitzirah, Asiyah. Those I could translate those things. Atzilut, emanation. Bria, creation. Yitzirah, formation. Asiyah, action. Whatever that means. Like, that's always a problem in Kabbalah, that you translate these words in English, it means nothing. Okay, whatever. Four sequential worlds of creation. Yud ba'atzilut. Now, we'll all be a monkey's uncle, 4-letter in God's name and 4 steps in creation, the 4 worlds. So the Yud of Hashem's name, that stands for Atzilut. Hey, the next letter, that's Bria, the next world of creation. The Vav, the 3rd letter in God's name, that stands for Yetzirah, symbolizes Yetzirah. Hey Achrona, and the last letter in God's name, the final Hey, right? Because there are 2 Heys, Yud Hey, Vav, and Hey. So the last Hey is associated with the letter of the world Asiya. Okay. Now, there's a very good reason for this. It's not just arbitrary. It's not just that God's name has 4 letters, there are 4 worlds. Is that actually each one of those letters, even graphically, the way they look, symbolizes this flowing into existence of creation, step by step, each step more concrete and more differentiated. We'll talk about that more in detail in a minute. The derech prat yesham havaya bechol olam mehadal olamot abiyah. Now, furthermore, every single world has Hashem's name in it. All 4 stages. So this is sort of like when we count the Omer. It's a similar theme. So we count the Omer. So there's the 7 attributes, right? The 7 sirot. So then what we do is we divide up each of those 7 and say that in each one of those 7 are the 7, right? So the attribute of chesed also has chesed within it. That's what we call chesed shebechesed, the chesed of chesed. So the first day of counting Omer, it's associated with the attribute of the sub-attribute of chesed, which is in the larger category of chesed. And the next subcategory is chesed gvura. So there's also gvura shebechesed. Gvura as the subcategory of chesed, and so on and so forth. So each of those 7 categories are divided into 7 subcategories for a total of 49. So the 49 days of the Omer. Okay, so it's the same thing with the worlds. So even though every one of the 4 worlds of Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah corresponds to Yud Kei Vav Kei, right? So there's also a Yud Kei Vav Kei subset in each of those 4 worlds. So there's the Yud of Atzilut, the Hey of Atzilut, right? The Vav of Atzilut and the Hey of Atzilut, right? Ba'eser sirot shebolam hahu, Yud b'chokhmah, Hey b'bina, Vav b'zeranpin, Hey b'malchut. So, like I said, it's going to be a little technical today, but we'll be fine. So, similarly, find the same thing in the 10 sfirot that we just talked about, okay? That the Yud Kei Vav Kei corresponds to all of the 10 sfirot. 10 sfirot are the specific emanations of the divine creative qualities. So how does this work? So remember I talked to you about that even the graphic form of each of the letters represents a divine creative emanation. So the Yud represents the first Sphira of all 10, right? Not starting with the emotional attributes, but starting with the intellectual attributes, Chokhmah. So Yud is Chokhmah. Why? Because Yud is a tiny little point. Because Chokhmah is that aspect of the intellectual attributes which is pre-form. I like to call it sort of intuition, though that's not really precise, but it's kind of a way to conceive of it, right? It's before you flesh out the idea. It's kind of like just a feeling, intellectual feeling. You can imagine such a thing. Zev's having one right now, having an intellectual feeling as we speak. So that's the Yud. Why is it symbolized by Yud? Because Yud is just a tiny little dot, no form. Then you get to Binah, the next stage in the intellectual expressions of divine creativity. So Binah is the Hey. Notice that the Hey has dimensionality to it. So you start with Yud, just point. Then the Hey has dimensionality, because that's what Bina is. Bina is taking that preformed intellectual feeling, as it were, and giving it analytical form. That's Hey. Hey has dimensionality. Then the next letter of Hashem's name is Vav. That's a line going down, because that is symbolic of the emotional attributes. That's the flowing down into the personality, right? The you know that you really believe in something if you get upset over it.
Maybe too much so.
Yeah, that you got to be careful about this, right? It's not. I'm not saying it's a virtue to go around getting upset.
Otherwise, you'd be detached.
Right, but it's really true that if someone says I don't know, whatever, the Torah is just some book written by a committee over time, it's got all kinds of terrible things in it, violence and blah blah blah, primitive. Oh, it's a bunch of fairy tales.
Intimidated.
Exactly. So if obviously people believe that, and if someone were to say that to me, I could have kind of a cool, calm, intellectual response, or I could hit them. And I better not encounter a person like that today, because I'm in that mood. So that is the Vav going down. It's the flowing down into the personality. You actually get upset. That's a Vav. A Vav is the flowing down from the intellect into the emotions. That means it's really part of you. That's why everybody, all the 100 people in this room right now, these are the people who really care. These are the people who get upset. But try not to hit people. Okay? And then the Hey. The Hey is Malchut. Malchut is, remember we said that the first Hey was Binah. Binah represents the dimensionality, giving form. Well, the ultimate giving form of something is Malchut. That's the lowest Sphira. Malchut is kingship. It's, governmental structure. Excuse me?
I said boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground. It's the real thing. It's solid. So that's Malchut. That's the lowest Hey. So you see here again that Yud Kei Vav Kei, right, is not transcendent of creation. It's also related to creation. Look at how we've just done this analysis that all the different forms of creation are expressions of Yud Kei Vav Kei and symbolized by Yud Kei Vav Kei. V'hu seder hava'at v'hamshachat ha'or shenimshach b'chol olam v'olam. This is the order of the bringing into being, the drawing down of the divine light, which is drawn into each world, ayedei dalet otiot elu, through these 4 worlds. So each of these worlds has these divine creative powers that go through these different forms of expression, the Yud Kei Vav Kei. Shehem tzimtzum v'hit pashtut hamshachat v'hit pashtut. That they are, these are 2 beautiful terms here, and very important expressions. Tzimtzum v'hit pashtut. Hamshacha v'hit pashtut. Okay, now these are 2 important words to know. Tzimtzum, we've had that word a lot. That's contraction. And hit pashtut means the spreading out. So those are opposite. There's tzimtzum and hit pashtut. Tzimtzum, hit pashtut. Okay? So those are kind of the 2 modalities of creation. There's the kind of contraction, and then there's the spreading out. See, as you go from level to level through all the different worlds, so in each of those worlds, there's this kind of modulation of the light being contracted and then flowing out, contracted and then flowing out. V'zeh inyan eser sfirot. That's the whole idea of the 10 sfirot. Chochma hu b'chinat tzimtzum. Chochma, as an example, remember that's the first. It's like just this kind of intuitive glimpse. That's Tzimtzum, right? It's so subtle. Tzimtzum. There's no, it's not fleshed out. So that's Chokhmah. What's the next one? Bina. Remember what Bina is? Giving it dimensionality, fleshing it out, analysis. So what's that? Ubina, ubichinat, hitpashtut. That's the spreading forth. So that's a very good example of this rhythm of tzimtzum, subtle, hitpashtut, fleshing out, spreading out. And all of existence has got a modulation between tzimtzum, hitpashtut. That's not really a good example. It'd be kind of like, tzimtzum, hitpashtut, tzimtzum, hitpashtut. See, the line is going down, right? It's the flowing down of divine creative forces, and that divine creative light goes through this modulation of contraction, expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction, expansion. I'm sure there's all kinds of. I was just thinking that. This is getting scary. This is getting scary. Whoa. Oh my gosh. Okay, exactly. I was just saying that I'm sure in physics there's all kinds of analogies of this idea of tzimtzum nishpat, this kind of modulation. Through this modulation of contraction spreading out. How do you say it in Hebrew? Tzimtzum hitpashtut. Tzimtzum hitpashtut. So every world is created, and within each world, each being is created, each creation from nothing to something. And that's why this process of creation also is associated with the four-letter name of God, Lashon Mehaveh, because as we pointed out yesterday, that the name Havaya actually means to bring into being. Mehaveh means to bring into being. It's the verb to be in the PL, grammatically, to bring into being, Mehaveh. So just to emphasize the big picture, in case anybody's confused, Yud Kei Vav Kei is not transcendent of creation. It is, in fact, associated with creation. Shehu Makor HaMehaveh Ma'ayin L'Yesh. It's the source of divine creation which brings into being from nothing to something. Vim Kain, Hare Yesh B'Shem Havai Gam Kain Chilukei Madrigot Pratim. That's why the name Yud Kei Vav Kei also has a multiplicity within it. Because if something is going to bring about multiplicity of existence, it also it has to have that quality of multiplicity. So even Yud Kei Vav Kei has that quality. We just pointed out each of the different letters of the name are associated with different aspects of the creative force. So now we're back to our starting point. Oh no, now I don't understand again. Because we thought we started out by saying Elohim is associated with multiplicity. And Yud Kei Vav Kei is associated with unity. So now we're saying it's not really true. Yud Kei Vav Kei is also associated with multiplicity. Oh my gosh, we're going around in circles. B'Shem Elohim Kativ Lashon Rabim. And this notion that we had said before that Elohim is associated with multiplicity, nothing can be more dramatic than to demonstrate that than the fact that it's actually in the plural. As we pointed out, there's an unbelievable irony and paradox from before, that the very name for God, Elohim, in which we assert that God is, if God is anything, is oneness, yet we use Elohim, which is a plural form, like the im ending, like klavim, kalef, klavim, dog, dogs, yeled, yeladim, boy, child, children. Wow, so Elohim is multiplicity, fine. V'shem Havaya hu echad, but we want to say that somehow Shem Havaya, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, is oneness. But now we're saying the name Yud Kei Vav Kei is also differentiation. Oy vey. Achinyan hu bichlal. Shem Havaya yesh bo pratim madrigot. El shekol madrigat shebohem v'chinat hitachdut v'chalut. Here's the difference. Oh, we're out of time. The difference is there's a profound difference between multiplicity, in which there is no integration, and multiplicity in which there's integration. So I don't know why I thought of this. What a gruesome image. Is anybody here a psychotherapist? I think I need therapy after this class. I was like looking at Larry, and I was thinking, look,
I'm a candidate for
there's a nose, there are ears, there's bushy eyebrows, right? You got all these like body parts, okay? So yet all the body parts, so we could identify the multiplicity and differentiation. But yet it's Larry. So there's a kind of unity and integration of the body parts. Then I was thinking, well, wait a second, what's the opposite? Then I was thinking about scattered body parts on the pavement. Some gruesome image of like, right, you know, God forbid, like, what a gruesome image does that in therapy. Like, you know, someone's killed in a terrorist attack and there's just body parts scattered all over the place. That's very different than the same body parts.
It's like all
Larry.
All the Shevet of Israel, all the different tribes.
Yeah, okay, good. It expresses itself in many different levels. But that's the idea, that Elohim, that name is associated with differentiation in which one doesn't sense the integration of the parts. But Yud Kei Vav Kei is also differentiation, but it's Larry. I'm not saying Larry's God. Or maybe he is. No, he's not. He's an expression of divinity. He's got a divine spark. Oh, no, I heard his feelings. He's going to quit being on the board. So the parts are actually integrated, and that's the beginning of we'll discuss more tomorrow, of the distinction between the notion of multiplicity, which is integration, and multiplicity in which you don't sense the integration. That one is Elohim, one is Yud Kei Vav Kei. And we'll pause there and go on tomorrow. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. Yard site